Y'all want to hear about that time I encountered spirits in Egypt? We get there, and it's a cool. It's beautiful. I mean, of course, it's incredible to see. You have the step pyramid. There's a temple, and there's this big open courtyard where he used to hold Olympic style games. The King Djoser built this thing. Imhotep was the architect for it, and he basically built this to kind of flex his muscle to show that he's him. And at the time, he was. You know, so we're walking through and we're getting ready to leave, and one of the guards there is just like, hey, like, you want to go like to one of these other areas, right? But like, oh, this is where we found the sarcophagus of King Djoser. And I'm like, oh, well, this is cool. When we get to this area, there's no one else around. The guard is only at the very top. There's nobody else, no other tourists down there, anything like that. So in order to get down to where this sarcophagus is, you have to go way down off in the ground. So much so that there's scaffolding along the side so that you can walk. So I take my little happy self and I'm like, okay, I want to get a good clear shot of this because I had my little DJI Osmo. I was like, yeah, I want to get a clear shot of this. Like, so I'm in the front. And I'm walking my little happy self. And then I get to this point where I'm walking towards this, what would have been like a door opening, right? I get to the door opening, and then all of a sudden, I feel this presence. And that's the only way for me really to describe it. I feel this presence, and it like gets in front of me. And then so much so that I stop and I go, woo! Because it was almost like it filled the entire doorway. Y'all, when I say I could not move forward, I just kind of paused, and it was one of those like, it felt like, the best way for me to describe it, a bouncer at a club? You know how a bouncer at a club has like this like really intense presence? Imagine that, but like on 10. And imagine it with like a sword. That's the kind of like energy. And so I kind of paused for a second. The people that are behind me, they say, oh, is there someone there? And I go, no, there's no one here. And then by the time they get close, they're like, oh yeah, we saw somebody.
I just seen somebody in front of you. Brittany.
Huh?
Yeah, that's why I asked.
I saw somebody in front of her.
Right there by that door?
Yep. Yeah. So we saw.
I mean,
Nah, we saw.
I beg your pardon. What you mean you saw somebody? So now I'm spooked. Now I'm like, what was that? So I walk forward, and the only thing before I start to walk forward, what I said like to myself was, I come peacefully. I come peacefully. When I said that, it moved. Now I know how that sounds. So the group that I'm with, by the time they actually get a little closer to me, they were like, oh, like, what did you say to it? And I was like, because they were like, it moved. And I, y'all, I'm not the one or the two for no foolishness. Because now, at this point, now I'm spooked. And we've just barely made it halfway down. So you still got to go further. So we keep walking. And there's this big like alcove area where it has these large steps where you can sit on, and they want to take pictures. I'm spooked. Because at this point, what was that? You know what I mean? And not only what was that, what's down here? Because I'm like, wait a minute. And this, y'all, I have been places, I've never experienced anything like that. I felt it. I didn't see anything. They apparently saw something. I don't know if this ain't all the way open yet or what, but I was like, when we getting up out of here, buddy? Like, what's happening? So we take the pictures, beautiful shots. We keep walking. And the further that you walk down, the closer you're getting to where the sarcophagus would have been, the energy in the air, that's the only way for me to describe it. The air felt like it was doing this, like, y'all. By the time we get further down, at this point, you feel like you're being watched. That's the only way for me really to describe it. So by the time we get all the way to the bottom, I look around at the people that I'm with, and I'm like, y'all, can we take a second to like pray or sender or something like that? Because we weren't invited here. Can we pause for a second to like...
You okay?
No, I'm fine. It's just I know there's energy here, but we weren't invited in the space, So can we just... We come peacefully. Not invasively.
Yes.
Isn't it? We come in love.
Yeah.
They feel our heart.
What it felt like back up at the top was, what I knew was, one, civilians probably were not allowed down there back then. Two, women were probably not allowed down there back then, right? And it wasn't like one of those things where it didn't feel like it was something that was going to harm me per se, but it was kind of one of those things like, you got to straighten up, you know what I mean? Like, recognize where you're going, like, you know what I mean, and come correct with it. Because I was like prancing myself, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're in Egypt and you're seeing all these cool things, and you're like, oh, we're going into look like, you know, and it was like, nah, like, straighten up, tighten up, you know what I mean? So by the time we start to walk back up, right? When I walked past that same area, that same entryway, I was like, ooh, come peacefully, right? And by the time I start walking up the scaffolding, because at this point, I'm booking it. I'm getting up as far as I possibly can. All of a sudden, like a windstorm, like a sandstorm happens, and sand and wind just start hailing down on top of our heads. By the time I get out of there, I'm just like, what was that? Yeah, y'all. By the time I got up out of there, I was like, okay. And so then you walk up and then you kind of walk to the left, and then that's kind of where the village would have been, right? And as I'm walking, I'm having like a mind body, like what just happened type of thing. But like the feeling of the space, you felt the how alive it was. And like I said, y'all, I've been many places. I have never quite felt anything like that. And it felt like an alive place. And so what I started doing from that point on, and I'm very glad because this was very early in the trip, whenever I would go into a new space, there were a few things that I would do. I would introduce myself. I would say what my name was. I would say where I'm from. And then I would say that I come peacefully, right? So I would say, hello, my name is Brittany. I come from the west across the sea. My family's from Louisiana. I come to you peacefully, and I thank you for allowing me to visit your space. That's what I would say. And from that point on, any space that I was going into, it felt more inviting. It felt more peaceful. And it wasn't like it was antagonistic before, but like, you know, Egypt, there was a place of like trade and commerce. There were visitors coming in all the time. So foreigners were something that were a part of the everyday life. But the thing that was very evident about the culture was that it was very structured. There was hierarchy. There was protocol for how you engage with people. And when most tourists come to places, they come to take. They want to take their photos. They want to have their experience. But when it comes to actually acknowledging the life and the intentionality that people had to build these spaces back then, I believe coming with this posture, a heart posture of peace and of gratefulness and gratitude and realizing you are a sojourner in their space, you know what I mean? It changed how I was received in the space. So yeah, y'all. Let me know, have y'all ever encountered anything like that? Like, have you ever traveled somewhere and felt like the energy of the place, of the people who built it? And how did you like navigate that? So when I started introducing myself, kind of going into spaces, and I would just speak to the space, I found that I could get into places and get into spots that like other people couldn't get into. I just found that to be the case. Like other people behind me would get stopped, and I would just breeze right on in. And I believe like being respectful of the space and the energy. But like Egypt, if you ever thought about going to Egypt, I highly recommend it. It's not necessarily a first time place to go. The richness of the culture, the intentionality, the beauty of the space, but even for it to be so ancient, it is very much alive. I recommend it. If you ever thought about going, go.